Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for the 1 hour talk. Mastering the art of assertiveness or learning how to speak up your confidence. Brought to you by Bandit Concept. We are a social impact organization that trains people that focus on people development in both the private sector as well as the public sector and social service organizations. My name is Alistair. I am a professional counselor by training and a trainer by profession. So without further ado, let's dive deep and find out what it is that stopping us from being as assertive as we want and what assertiveness really is. So in today's session, we are going to cover 4 segments. The first part will be to examine what some areas that prevents us from being assertive. Now, to make it very clear, assertiveness is a trait that we would like to have when called upon. It doesn't need to be assertive all the time. That will make us quite unbearable. So being assertive, as we need to, and how we respond to negative situation actually reflects on how assertive we are. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the benefits of being assertive, which I think you and I know. But 3, how transformational can it be if we are more assertive and kind of more in control of our lives? We'll touch a little bit about that as well. And how you can be assertive even in very negative, toxic situations and in cases where you find stifled, how to have a voice that allows you to speak up. And I'm going to leave you also with 2 assertiveness techniques that hopefully you can put into practice straight away after today's talk. So without further ado, let's begin by asking yourself how assertive you are in various scenarios. Over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to flash a couple of slides out. And all you need to do is to scan the QR book and to indicate on a scale of 1 to 5 how comfortable you are. 1, being extremely uncomfortable with being assertive, and 5, being very comfortable as if it was second nature. Right? So let's start with the first scenario. You're in a meeting and a colleague keeps interrupting you and while you're sharing your input and kind of disrupting your flow. What do? You stay silent and perhaps in your mind you say, I wish the guy with this, clear that up. But how often would you be able to actually express it? Right? So on a scale of 1 to 5, go right ahead and indicate 1 being very uncomfortable. You rather stay silent for the sake of harmony and allow this guy to just keep disrupting you. Or 5, you are going to be very comfortable and you will be able to speak up easy enough. Right? Okay, good. Some of you are a little bit more assertive. Some of you are a little bit unsure. So what assertiveness means and how you really actually speak up and actually exert yourself to reclaim the conversation back, to recreate your presentation rather than to lose control of it. Great. Now, second question. A family member frequently makes jokes at your expense in front of others. In a family context, you seem to be bearing the brunt of his quite unnecessary humor. How comfortable are you at speaking up? So some of you will find it a little bit more uncomfortable in a family context, and some of you are a little bit more comfortable because there's a level of familiarity. Okay, so there are times when we are called to be assertive, and we realize in certain situations we find it a little bit easier than other situations. And they begin to think, maybe I could just let it slide. But the problem with letting it slide is that over time it will take its toll on you. You begin to feel uncomfortable speaking up. Right? So again, we realize in certain the context we are more comfortable, in certain contexts we are less comfortable. Let's move on to a third scenario. Someone who reports directly to business a deadline, but has the goal to actually blame someone else for this oversight. How comfortable are you in coming and speaking out and actually letting this person know, hey, this is not quite right? You shouldn't be doing this at the expense of someone else, right? Learning to take responsibility is part and parcel of what we need to do as professionals. So how comfortable are you at speaking up? All right, so in a context of a direct report, someone who is a little bit less of a peer, a little bit more of a junior, we seem to be a bit more comfortable. So we begin to see there are certain things and certain occasions where we are not afraid to speak up, but there are certain situations where we are a little bit more uncomfortable when speaking up. Now, the last one, you're already swamped, but your manager comes up and asks you to take on another urgent task. How comfortable are you in speaking up and telling him, hey, I swamped, and at this rate we are going, you're going to have to make a decision. The quality of my work or the quantity of work that you're about to give to me, it may affect the quality of the work that you are depending on it to do. So how comfortable are you seeking him? So kind of mixed bag of responses. Some of you, 60% of you are comfortable, excellent. And the rest of you are a little bit in the middle. I guess it will depend on the nature of the relationship you have with your manager. And if it was a manager who you are a little bit less, have a little bit less rapport with, a little bit less of a relationship with, I suspect you will be more uncomfortable than comfortable sticking up and letting him know, right? So, question, you're asked to help with the family event. You're kind of overwhelmed, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and you really don't want to say yes, right? You really want to say no down inside. So how comfortable are you in actually saying, hey, all right, so family situations, we may find that I may have to, I'm obliged to, and some of you are comfortable, no is a definite no, and some a little bit more ambivalent in between, depends on who the family member is, what the relationship is. Imagine it was an old auntie of yours, an old uncle, even your mom with your head. How comfortable are you with being assertive to tell it, I love to, but I really have to tell you down this time, right? So we need to see that there is a degree of difficulty in being assertive all the time. I've given you scenarios that I think you are the one that we initiate. You are given a request and you initiate it. What we haven't gone into, and which we will dive deeper later on, is when you are level with the criticism. Someone says something to you that's offensive, and you kind of feel very uncomfortable. How comfortable are you in actually asserting your voice, sharing your opinion with them? So, if you found this challenging, it's good to know that you are not alone. Assertiveness is a skill. It's not a personality trait. Many of us believe that assertiveness is something we are born with. Unfortunately, it's not. It's a model behavior. We have grown up with role models. Some of them a little bit more assertive, and some a little bit more aggressive. And in between lies that knowledge and that ability to discern which is which and to be able to practice. And like any skill, once you acquire, I would say that it will not just transform the way you speak, that it will transform the way you see yourself. It will transform the way you live your life. So, in order for us to understand, some barriers to being assertive, let me just start by saying that it all begins with your mind. It begins with how you perceive and how you think assertiveness should be displayed. So if I were to ask you, what makes assertiveness difficult for you? Right? What makes assertiveness difficult for you? What makes you choke and keep silent when you really want to say something? Regardless of the context, right? So context of situation. Perhaps for some, I've been told, it depends on who you're speaking with. It's a little bit harder to speak, and with someone who is a little bit older, a little bit more senior, you're worried, right? Colleagues who are overly critical, maybe a little bit more senior. You're afraid that it may backfire, hierarchy at workplace, superior, right? Fear of offending. Colleagues who are a little bit critical, you're afraid of jeopardizing the relationship, fear of rejection. There's a lot of I would say, your perception of what could happen rather than actually what is going on. So if you think about it, one of the things that holds us back from being a little more assertive is our perception of how others will respond. The question is, if you continue with this line of thinking, always afraid of the reaction of others, how will that affect you personally in the long term? Are you able to find your voice? Are you able to actually state what you mean clearly, respectfully, to get your point of view across? Perhaps the dynamics of the entire relationship could change the minute you became more assertive. The way you see yourself or the others see you will begin to change. Perhaps you are looking for a leadership position, and yet at the same time you are afraid to be assertive. How would you be noticed? Okay? So, not a nice thing to do. That's an interesting concept. So, if I could summarize everything, I would say that there are kind of common mental barriers that prevent us from being assertive. The first one, which would be the fear of rejection. We are worried about what others may think of us. They may not like us, they may not accept us. And as a result, we keep quiet and pull ourselves back. And some have told me that it's still They're really selfish to put our needs first. So we tend to go through life putting the needs of others ahead of ourselves. So remember, if you say yes to someone else, you're probably saying no to yourself. And we saw some of the responses earlier, overthinking consequences, imagining worst case scenarios instead of being fully in the present. And overanalysis, and you get paralyzed, that's also not helpful. Because what happens after that is after the situation, you're going to go into the I wish I had said this more. And that is going to be turning into rumination. You'll be thinking about it. Oh, it's so unfair. I could have said this. I should have said it. I could have. And what happens? You feel angry at yourself. Right? So what starts off as an unkind remark by someone, it turns out, instead of you being able to address it, your anger at being on the receiving end of something unfair is directed inwards at yourself. In the long term, that could also affect your mental well-being, and it could have changed the way you see the things you do, the dynamics that you are in the relationship with, at the workplace, and everything begins to spiral out. Another common mental barrier is the fear of conflict. I think many equate assertiveness with confrontation and conflict. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Conflict is inevitable. As long as there are two human beings around, there will be inevitably disagreements. It's how these conflicts are managed that will either help us to grow, learn something about the other person, or keeps us trapped in this spiraling cycle of anger, reaction, and after that, we have to realize and we have to apologize, and you just go round and round in a circle. So avoiding conflict and assertiveness being equated with confrontation, that is something that I hope to change but before the end of today's workshop, that you'll be able to understand that assertiveness is not always low self-worth. Unfortunately, many of us don't like to admit it, but some of us have grown up without a voice, thinking that our opinions don't matter. After all, what's going to change if I say something? So I just might as well learn to suck it up and live it. And last one, past conditioning. If you grew up as a little child, or you have a culture, or you are in an environment where it's better to stay quiet, maintain status quo, don't rock the boat, be agreeable, you're going to find it difficult when called upon to be assertive in a calm, respectful manner. Chances are you may be aggressive mistake. When you reach the end of your rope and you've taken all that you can take and you want to express yourself, chances are you're going to blow up. And that, to many people, is not assertiveness. In fact, on the receiving end of what you think is assertiveness will be fear. And that dynamics will affect any relationship that you are in. So, to summarize, one of the key things that may affect our ability to be assertive are our emotions. And if we acknowledge that emotions sometimes get in the way of our rational thinking, we need to take a couple of steps back and ask ourselves, where did these emotions come from? Many people think that emotions are isolated. They are not. Emotions are the result of the way we see the world, what we call our mental model of the world, how we process information, how our mind kicks in certain situations and it makes certain decisions, and how we act on these decisions. Some of the way we look at the situation make it unhelpful. We create very unhelpful storylines around the interaction that we're in and the situation that we find ourselves. And as a result, our emotions get triggered. So, if you look at this model taken from cognitive behavior therapy, this piece says is our mental model are our lens of the world. But what's going on inside here? Okay? So inside here, in a split second, our story that we create around situations. It's not the situation, the event, or interaction that bother us. In and of itself, these are neutral. It's the storylines that we create about the event, about the person, about ourselves that affect us, and triggering the emotions that come along with it, and perhaps even the fear that holds us back or speaking out respectfully and calmly. So it influences how we interpret such experiences, and it shapes how we make sense of the world. So, if you could be a bit more assertive, perhaps it's a good time for you to understand that there may be beliefs that are holding you back from being assertive. You may have a value of respect, but you may believe that respect is earned, and therefore you don't think you're worthy of the respect of others. You may find it difficult to be assertive. Perhaps you have a value of trust, openness, accountability, but you also believe that if you're not in a position of seniority, you cannot demand these of people, and therefore you need to toe the line, and therefore that stops you from being assertive. So let's examine, right, some beliefs that may be holding us back. One of the things that I hope that you will realize after today's talk is that assertiveness is not about what you are able to do. It's not about the skills I'm going to teach you, although that goes a long way in helping you change the way you see yourself. Assertiveness at the heart of it is about who you are. It's about the person you've been involved. It's about your life experiences and how you view each and every one of them. It's about how each and every interaction that you have, whether it's positive or negative, that shapes the way you see yourself, shapes the way you handle situation, and shapes the way you are. Controlling the dialogue, the conversation, and the way you think and the way you feel ultimately. So, question, how can you be more assertive? How can you be more assertive in communicating your thoughts, your feelings, and your needs honestly and openly in any context and in any situations? One of the things that you will have to do, although you may find it a bit challenging, is to begin a mindset shift. And a mindset shift that supports assertive communication rather than holding back. So one of the important things for us to remember is that, number one, I have a right to eat it. Assertiveness is all about your respect of yourself and understanding that your opinions or feelings or needs are important and you are valid. And you have a right to ask for these things. It's also an important fact that you need to realize assertiveness means others also have that right to be heard. So in an assertive communication, let's not adopt it. Two of us will be sharing our point of view. There will not be emotions coming into play, histrionics coming into play. There will not be demands, but there will be a certain level of quiet calm and trying to understand exactly what each of us is trying to say and how we can collaboratively move forward. Right? The other thing that you need to change in terms of a mindset shift is that saying no is not rude. Some of us were taught that saying no is actually disagreeable. All right? It's not nice to say no. We know that, yes, we don't say no to strangers. We say no to strangers easily enough. But when someone comes in and makes a demand on you, whether it's a friend, a familiar face, a colleague, someone who wants something of you, you find that it's a little bit harder for you to say no because you think it's rude. So real assertiveness means recognizing when saying no is an act of self-care. It's about you being honest. So remember, if I say yes to you, I'm going to say no to myself and perhaps someone I love. If my colleague tells me I need your help, can you say it tonight? I'm going to say, if I say yes to him, I'm going to say no to my family who probably will be expecting me home for dinner. And I call it to tell them, hey, I can't make it. The other mindset shift that we need is that feedback is growth, not rejection. Many of us fear rejection. Why? Because we take it personally. Remember, what we do and how we respond to situation is on us. How people respond to us is on them. I am not responsible for your behavior. If I persist, if I state what I have to say and you reject it and you dismiss it, it's on you. It's not on me. So people may push back when you become more assertive. And I can tell you that is going to be a given. It's a way of the other handling your reaction. So when you are more assertive, I guess they will feel uncomfortable enough to the point that they either accept it and have a conversation with you or they reject it and push back. So I would encourage you to see this as the chance for growth, not looking at feedback as a chance for growth, not looking as a rejection or to take it personally. So here are a couple of scenarios, and after this slide, I would like you to write down perhaps some angry beliefs for yourself that could help you to be a little bit more assertive. So for example, in scenario 1, you're about to speak up in a meeting, senior staff are present, and your mind starts spiraling. Buddy, if I say something wrong, buddy, these don't go according to plan. What if you asking questions and I can't answer them? I think a little bit more of a helpful way of positioning is my perspective is valuable. I prepared well and I deserve to be heard. I'll take the time to explain. I'll take the time to clarify. Despite whatever negative comments that come in, I will also get them to clarify the comments that is thrown at me. So I'm given a chance to explain. So I walk into the room. Yes, I'm nervous. Yes, I'm anxious, but with a little bit more calm after this. Scenario 2. You feel nervous about asserting your boundaries and someone pushes extra work to you. And in your mind, you say, I shouldn't say no, I'll just take it up and what to do. I think you need to ask yourself, is this work that you can handle? And perhaps a more helpful angry belief would be, it's okay to say no. Setting boundaries helps me to do my best work. It's not just about the quantity of what I need to do, but perhaps it's also about the quality. So these examples show you how angry beliefs can give you the confidence to act assertively by reframing doubt into an empowering thought that you can own for yourself. So anchor beliefs. What beliefs can you hold on to when you need to be assertive? Here are some examples for you. Speaking up is an act of kindness. Speaking up avoids misunderstanding. I deserve to be heard and I deserve to be understood. So what do you think at this point in time where you're not in a conversation that's confrontational, or you're not in an interaction that could cause you to be a little bit more fearful? At this point, what are 2 to 3 anchoring beliefs that you could write down to help yourself? If you have the ebook downloaded, you will find that there are spaces for you to actually jot down your thoughts. So just to quickly type it in the PDF format. So I'd encourage, write down 3 to 4 statements that resonate with you using the examples I've set. And the next time you find yourself in a situation where you have to speak up, use these anchoring beliefs to help you calm down and to actually speak honestly with clarity and openness. Moving forward, I'm going to help you with 2 techniques that I think may be helpful when you are in a position where you need to be a bit more assertive. The first one is the use of I statements, and the second one, negative inquiry, which you will find as a very useful tool when confronted with someone who is a bit negative and a bit toxic. So I statements, what does it mean? Let me give you the opposite of a I statement. If I came up to you and said this, you don't seem to be taking my feedback seriously, and you don't seem to be taking the punctuality at work seriously. Okay? Me speaking to you in this way, how do you feel? How would you feel, and how would you respond to me? Okay? So if you notice, this segment has a lot of you. And if I suffered using this, look at where my ends are and how you will respond to it. Okay? Now, do you think this will open up a dialogue or shut it down? If I spoke to you this way, would you then just either clam up, apologize, or would you then, again, open up and share with me why you may be having difficulty with punctuality? So instead of using you statements, I would recommend that you make it an addict to use I statements. Because in an I statement, it sounds less like you're blaming someone. It sounds less like you are accusing the person. You're accusatory. And when that happens, they often escalate into unnecessary conflicts or confrontation. They always put someone on the defensive. I statement, on the other hand, for example, I feel that your becoming is affecting the rest of the team and our ability to start our meetings on time. I wonder if there's something that's holding you back from coming to work early. Notice the use of I statements. The use of I statements basically opens up dialogue. It is about expressing your feelings, your needs, your experiences without seeming to attack the other person. I statements help you express your emotions respectfully and clearly. So remember, the I statement starts with you stating something with the evidence that comes along with it. So there's a little formula you can use. I feel, whatever it is, when, and because. Right? Scenario. For those of you who find this scenario one a bit familiar, your spouse often leaves us a pool, right? Checking on the phone, watching TV without contributing to household chores. Instead of just lashing out, says, you never help out. Wouldn't it be a little bit more helpful if you said something along the line, I feel frustrated when you aren't helping out because it takes away my time to do things that are important for the relationship or important for the children. Notice the use of I statements. Perhaps using the I statement, you can begin the process of understanding what's holding the other person back and allowing the other person to express themselves to you. Now let's talk about a workplace scenario. Your manager assigns work to you at the last minute, right? What we call urgent tasks. And we all know that urgent task is usually because someone's dropped the ball earlier, they've forgotten about it, and suddenly it's become super urgent. Instead of you responding, why so last minute? Okay, I would say, use the I statement. I feel stressed when receiving urgent requests from you at the last minute because it affects my ability to plan effectively and the quality of our work suffers. Right? So these examples highlight pain points that you may have in a personal and private life, but it again uses you, allows you to regain control of the conversation using constructive I statements instead of accusing someone and having the whole conversation spiral into a conflict or an argument. All right? So let's just use a reframing statement. Someone comes up, for example, you want to say, you never help out. What could you say instead using an I statement? Okay, so here's the prompt. I feel overwhelmed when I have to handle everything alone because I need more support from you. So I think it's important for us to realize that the voice we have needs to be heard. The disagreement you have in any situation also needs to be expressed. Keeping things to yourself and then just sleeping under the rug, pretending it's not important, under up the boat, or your voice is not important, in the long term will definitely affect your mental well-being, or in fact make you a little bit more, I would say, unhappy, a little bit more quietly, passively aggressive towards the other person. And all these patterns of communication will not help any relationship in any form of time. So I'm gonna get you to respond on Slido, right? With the response using I statements. If I were to get you to change this statement instead of, this reason why this whole project failed is because you didn't take your work seriously. If you did, you would have submitted your part solely. How to respond? It's a bit of a stretch, it's a bit of a challenge, but you could start with I, followed by the emotion you feel, followed by the reason for feeling the emotion, and the context in which this conversation is being had. Or perhaps you're on the receiving end of this conversation. How would you respond to this statement that seems a little bit on the half side, a little bit presumptuous, perhaps even, equating the failure of the project with the late submission of the work, whether it is correlated or not, but not giving you a chance to explain yourself. And if you find that you wanted to be a little bit more assertive to explain yourself, what would you say instead? Excellent. Right? I'd like us to see how we can manage deadlines and communicate better moving forward. Okay. I feel disappointed our project failed, and part of me feels frustrated because it feels like it happened because of the late submission on your part. Right. Great start. All right. So if you realize that when you use I statement of corrects, you could respond by saying, oh, I was caught up because there was so much to do and I was depending on the part to be submitted earlier. Right. So you two are using the I statements to help express yourself a little bit better. I feel frustrated, but you don't seem to take it seriously and submit your part. All right? And that did affect the project. You could have successfully completed it on time instead of being late and then having the client upset, etc. Okay, we'll wait for the others to finish typing. So as you begin to hear what I have to say, and as it hopefully resonates with you, I hope you can come to some sort of understanding that being assertive is a skill that you can pick up, but it is something that you need to acquire in terms of a mindset shift and to put into practice, right? I feel overwhelmed, I struggle, right? I feel sorry when I have affected everyone, I understand your team, appreciate him. Excellent. So all these I segments create opportunity for dialogue. Rather than me saying something, you being defensive, argue with me, I'll argue with you, and then we'll huff and puff and go outside and I'll also sort city for a few days. Okay? Excellent. I appreciate your feedback and I will improve myself. So that's another assertive skill where we can take negative feedback and turn it into a constructive conversation. And that's something that is a little bit less equated with being assertive. Right? Being assertive is not all about saying no when you actually saying yes when you mean no, no when you mean yes, and all that sort of stuff, but also your ability to hold your space while you are being accused of something, criticized, and being able to respond in a constructive manner that creates opportunities for growth and dialogue. Okay? I'm frustrated, I'm disappointed, excellent, overwhelmed. Right? So there are two more participants typing, and I'll wait until they finish so that they can actually take a look. Okay, cool. Right, so it seems that many of you have gotten the hang of it. Using I statements is not as difficult. You start with expressing how you feel. You start with expressing the context of how you feel based on the context of the situation, right? And perhaps even like the last one, I apologize for how you're feeling and I share your frustration. Let's see how we can work forward and let's see how we can work together moving forward. Right? So the second technique, which is more in line with you on the receiving end, what we call negative inquiry. A negative inquiry is the skill of inviting constructive feedback. Okay? For example, I come up to you and say something quite offhand, right? Or a little bit dismissive or a little bit critical. And it stings, it hurts. More often than not, we justify our emotional response by arguing, right? By denying. A negative inquiry, assertive response diffuses tension. In fact, it demonstrates your confidence and openness in receiving negative feedback. It helps gather specific constructive ways of moving forward instead of just jumping to conclusions and defending yourself. Okay? So, for example, negative inquiry. Your tone up is really off-putting. Negative inquiry, it sounds assertive, would sound like, thank you for the feedback. Could you help me understand what made it come across this way? So notice, it's not defensive. It opens up dialogue, not a debate. It shows you're willing to grow. It shows that you are calm and confident enough to take whatever criticisms that's being leveled at you. So let me give you a couple of scenarios for you to consider. Scenario one, colleague come up to you and says, listen, your presentation was so confusing, right? Now, normally, we will respond by saying, in what sense? I don't understand. Can you tell me? Okay? Why you think it's so confusing? A negative inquiry response that's a little bit more calm and assertive will be, thank you for the feedback. Thank you for pointing it out. Can you share which part of it was confusing for you? So if you notice, I'm asking for specifics because I had a willingness to hear the comments and I take it that you have something constructive to say that I can learn from rather than just shutting out and going on the defensive mode. Second scenario, manager comes up to you and says something along the line, you don't seem to be very committed to this project. Natural reaction, hey, I did my fair share of work. How can you not see that? How can you accuse me for not being fully committed to this project? I would recommend that you use a negative inquiry that goes along. I appreciate the feedback. Could you help me understand what made you feel that I wasn't fully committed? Can you point out to me what gave you that impression? Notice the use of I statements. Notice the willingness to accept what is being said and to ask a bit more so that they can be clarified. So negative inquiry turns criticisms into constructive conversation by focusing and trying to understand the perspective of the other person rather than reacting negatively because you feel offended. So let's take a look at this example. And perhaps for you to respond calmly, asking an open-ended question, showing openness, not agreement. I don't have to agree what you are saying, but I want to find out more. Okay? So for example, someone says to you, you can be kind of dismissive in group chats. Okay? What would you say in response? All right, so you can kind of dismiss it in group chats. Sometimes your reaction makes other people feel offended. You're not really, in group chat, you need to be a bit more sensitive. You need to be a little bit more aware for what's going on with others. How would you respond to a criticism or a comment like that? Especially if it's in the group chat. When everyone else is watching. Which group chat? Let's say, for example, it's a company group chat among colleagues. Okay? How would you respond? Excellent. Okay? Help me understand how I was being dismissive. Okay? I can thank you for the sharing with me. Do you have an example of this so that I can make sense of it? Good. And I just don't like you. All right, thank you very much. All right, which is kind of true. But to be honest, when we make it personal, the other person will also take it personally. And that's the last thing you want to do. I think what we want to do is to be able to receive comments that are negative. All right. Okay, thank you for your feedback. Can you help me understand what you are dismissive? Where carry you back? Yes. So I think this is an attitude that we need to have. Realizing that we too may have blind spots that we're not aware. Realizing that we too may be doing things that will be giving off the wrong impression. Perhaps you will not be dismissive, but it is not about whether you are dismissive or not. It's about how the other receive it. And when they gave you the comments, how would you respond to it? Right? So the last one, I didn't realize it. Thanks for pointing out. Perhaps you could tell me how I was being dismissive. Right? Okay, good, excellent. We'll wait for the other three. We'll finish typing before we move on. I'm sorry you feel that way. Right? But can you tell me how I can assist him? Okay. So remember, sometimes it's not about apologizing, but it's more seeking clarification. And once the clarification is made, then you can have a choice whether you acknowledge it and then you choose to apologize, or just to maybe perhaps state your point of view that there was no intent on being dismissive and you're sorry that it came across this way. Okay? So it's important for us to understand that the responses we have to other people is solely our responsibility. And how we respond to us is their responsibility as well. Okay? So, to summarize, assertiveness is at the heart of it about balance. It's not about being rude, nasty. It's not about being nice intentionally. It's just about you being clear on what matters to you. It's about speaking your truth with respect and with confidence. It's about having clarity. And one of the difficult things is when we go through life is not to be able to pick up on when conversations are ambiguous. And when that happens, there's going to be more ambiguity. And at the heart of ambiguity, people will jump to conclusions. Right? So assertiveness is rooted in who you are. It comes from your values and your beliefs. It's not a clarity of being rather than just a technique. So, which will come first? I believe that as you trying to be more assertive, you will realize that there's going to be a mindset shift. Your level of curiosity and objectivity will slowly rise, and you'll be more curious than reactive, and you'll be more willing to ask questions to get others to clarify, and in doing so, allow them to speak and allow you the space to respond accordingly. Assertiveness at the heart of it is a skill. It's a skill that it can be learned. It's a skill that can be practiced. In fact, do you find yourself in a very toxic working environment, or in a relationship, or in situations that are not usually as functional as you would like to be? Assertiveness is even more important. It gives you a chance to regain control. It gives you a chance to seek constructive conversations in the face of toxic or unhealthy comments that are being leveled at you. And like any skill, it can be honed, it can be practiced, and it can be developed. And like any skill, it helps us to become more comfortable as we continue to practice and we dive deeper into it. So assertiveness at the heart is a way of living true to yourself. Okay, at the same time, be respectful of others. You will notice that as you become more assertive, something will shake in you. Your level of confidence will grow. Your understanding of what it takes will help you to also be a little bit clearer in the way you speak, in the way you clarify, in the way you comment, and in the way you interact with others. At the heart of assertiveness, like we learned earlier, it's not about what you can do, although the doing will help you become who you are. It's about who you are truly at the heart of it that will allow you to have such assertive conversations. Oops. Sorry. So if you want to find out more how you can be more assertive, and you want to find out how you can actually master assertiveness with confidence, we are going to conduct 2 workshops coming on the 19th and on the 23rd of September. Full day workshops. The QR code is there for you to scan to find out a little bit more. Drop us a line so that we can give you more details.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I think thanks, Alexia, for this call. We are in good time, so it's a good chance for us to have the dialogue Q&A. Maybe before we go into the dialogue, I should want to do a shout out. Actually, the reason why we are doing this webinar, you see, is a little different from the usual Zoom format. It's because we are changing the way we are supporting organizational learning. In this case, actually, there's a lot of camera and a camera crew behind us. So we are doing this in-house. And the purpose is for us to be able to help organizations bring this talk to people who may not be able to be present during the time and the date. So what best after this, we will actually upload the webinar into the YouTube, where if your colleagues will miss it, feel free to ask them to join us. So if you are interested to have a chat with us to see how we can support your organizational learning, feel free to do so. Just my number is there and let's say that. So my name is Waifu, I'm the founder of Talent.z, and we're happy to chat with you or your organization. Yeah. So while we are waiting for this, I'm going to go into the Q&A, and I'm going to be, let's say, so I'm going to be the one asking all the difficult questions they may not have passed. Okay, so while you're listening to us, feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A cycle as well. And I'll pick up those questions and ask Alaska as we go along. So maybe before I start, right, I'm just going to run with the question I have. I think the very first question that I had was, sometimes we want to be assertive. But we do have people who we have been living with, or could be colleagues that we have been working alongside for very long, and we have developed certain preconceived notion about that. This person always like that, huh? To be assertive for what? Tell me you cannot bring the message into the bit. Or it could be that, well, I say he doesn't listen anyway, why bother? Okay. So for cases like that, how would you suggest the person to do?
Okay. So I would say adopting a mindset shift, right? And the mindset shift would begin by regaining control. So when you say things like this, there's a sense of helplessness. Whatever I say is hopeless, doesn't change. I find that I have no voice. I think we need to change the mindset, right? We need to change the mindset that says change will come. But who is going to be the catalyst for change? Who's the one that's going to initiate change? So if you consider a situation that you find yourself very uncomfortable and you choose to stay silent, aren't you responsible then for making sure things stay the same? And if you're unhappy that things stay the same, and you blame the other person for making things stay the same, then I think that's a bit crazy. So perhaps just try out by saying something as simple as all right, I feel that you are not taking me seriously. And I feel that the things that you'll be talking about, but you're doing something else, makes me feel very uncomfortable. Perhaps I think we should sit down and have a conversation. Right? Should we just quickly find out exactly what's really going on between the two of us? Using an I statement, but starting with the belief that, again, goes along the line that says, if I've had enough, there are two things can happen. Either I keep quiet and I blow up, or I have a meaningful conversation where I am calm, collected, and change is going to be inevitable. So see such difficult conversations as opportunities for discovery, opportunities to learn about one another, not to fear the reactions or have the sense that says, what's the point? There's always a point here, okay? The point could be in your family context. Others are watching. Perhaps as a young child learning what it means to see mom and dad being more assertive, to have an adult-wide conversation rather than just screaming or giving each other that silence.
Okay, so I hear you. What it means is that to point out that even that preconceived notion that might have been had, to point out the dynamics that I feel certain way about love, forward, and clarity, and having that initiate that conversation rather than
Be comfortable because you want something good to come out of it, not just leveling criticism at them.
okay. I think this question comes to it. I think you used the I statement, my. Some suggested we're using we statement help. Does it really matter?
Okay, so I would say it does matter because it makes the assumption that we share the same feelings, we share the same thing, unless and until you have consensus. Three of us feel the same way and go up to someone and says, listen, Mr. Supervisor, we feel that the way you talk to us is a bit demeaning and we would appreciate it if you were not so dismissive. What if the supervisor said, okay, by we, who are you referring to? You? Do you all feel the same way? And he starts pointing, you. I think we can be quite, we can't be absolutely certain that everyone say, yes, we feel the same way. Okay? Some people may then back up and then you're going to be left holding. So I would say, don't speak up for other people. Speak up for yourself.
Okay. This other question was also in my mind as well. Because I was thinking what if this is a conversation that will affect my job? This is the boss who my appraiser in, and I'm trying to tell you something that don't agree with how he's running the business.
And that is always the case. How do I not lose my sense of self-respect and my identity for a check? Okay? And I think that if we do voice out, and it's not an unreasonable request based on your own particular needs, but for the well-being of the team that you're working with and organization's growth as a whole, I think that would be helpful, right? If you feel that your job is being jeopardized and you feel that there's such a toxic environment, perhaps it is important, even more important, that you open up dialogue. So that this whole thing about people making assumptions, being fearful. I once had a place where no one wanted to speak up and everyone was afraid because we were thinking it would jeopardize our performance appraisal. And then someone quietly went to speak and we realized that, hey, the boss was actually a lot more willing to talk to us than we gave him credit for. So how do you know until you try?
So I said, I want to run my separate question a lot. It's not on the list. So in this case, how do we balance consequences versus needing to be assertive to put our thoughts across all the time that we feel like there's
I'm on us to also be mindful. Remember, we had the right to be that, but the other person also has the right to be that. So it's about being respectful. Now, if I am just going to shoot out my mouth without thinking, without clarifying, without being an objective observer of the situation and presenting the facts objectively, I'm just going to express my own opinions. And you know what happens when we express our own opinions. The other person will also have his or her own opinion, and not based on any subjective or objective matrix for the discussion. We're going to end up spiraling into I say, you say, he say, she say, and the whole conversation will be so unhelpful, right? So I think it will be more important for us to realize, what is it I'm trying to say? What is the context in which I'm having this conversation? How long has this been going on? Put everything together, and today's talk doesn't give us much time to actually share that, but that's an important part of being assertive. You're not jumping to conclusions, you're not making assumptions, you're gathering. And in the workshop that we're going to spend one day together with, we're going to have more than ample time, many scenarios to help me to understand what it means to plan for a difficult conversation. What needs to happen for you to be more assertive, because when you have a set of facts that you're able to talk about in a calm, collected manner, you're able to respond in a way that's constructive rather than emotional.
So the intent of being assertive is important. It's not about just throwing ideas as well.
Exactly. Push right. Exactly.
So I think this question could be relevant to some of the audience there. Some cultures are just top up. It's not hierarchy, there's a lot of layers, you don't jump that kind, layer by layer. So how do someone be assertive when it's actually a cultural environmental factor?
Okay, so when there is a cluster of I want to use my words very carefully. I would say people who are not open to the opinions of others, okay, a little bit more authoritative. So perhaps assertiveness may be a bit more difficult. So if you are in a uniform group, if you're in a place where there's ranking and there's a lot more of a hierarchy that's in place, I think assertiveness comes from dealing with one situation at a time. You're not going to be standing on a mountain and shout, "Oh, be assertive to everyone and anyone that you come across." Right? I think that will come across as very unhelpful and not really constructive. So being assertive in a situation where it's a lot more top-down, I would say manage one situation at a time that you come across, one person at a time. So I would say learning how to be a person of influence, right? So that whatever you are going through, you are speaking up. Perhaps it will influence the other person to help them to realize that their behavior is not actually helping the team to feel safe and helping the team to grow, to be able to exercise initiative. At the end of it, no company ever grows where everyone is fearful and not taking any sort of initiative or responsibility. Right? Companies grow because people feel safe. They want to speak up. They want to share ideas. They want to even admit mistakes openly. And that's another thing that we are going to learn how to do in the one-day workshop. How to own your mistakes you make assertively so that you can learn and grow from it. And the entire team are able to learn and grow from it.
I think it's a good important note, right? We can't take the most challenging case and then practice assertiveness. We have to go with those that we feel more confident to practice.
One step at a time.
Okay. Wait, this question is on team. I think it's important. Sometimes we want to be assertive, but there's also the need to take into account what the team wants, how do they feel their sentiments. Yeah, so as a manager or supervisor, how do they balance that respect?
I think assertiveness means I'm able to speak respectfully, share my point of view, and I'm also willing to hear all different points of view that may be contrary to my own. Remember, I don't have I don't own the right to speak. Everyone has the right to speak. If I share my point of view and I pause and I allow others to share, we could be in a better space than when we first started. We could create an environment where people say, "Hey, I feel safe to share with you," and this guy is not overreacting. He's willing to hear, willing to be willing to engage. I think that's important. And once we are willing to engage, something shifts in the way we see each other. And so balancing assertiveness and team consensus, it's important for us to always come to some sort of agreement, right? So if I seek first to be understood, right, rather than to understand, then it's always about me putting my needs first. But if I come to you in a respectful manner, wanting for you to understand me and really to understand you, team consensus will naturally be formed, right? At the same time, everyone is able to be assertive.
I think it's a good point because at the end of the day, we want to be assertive. It's also about being ready that after the constitution hearing of everybody's opinion, we may have some awareness of if we change or
perhaps they may even come to a point where you are quietly realizing, right, once everyone shared, that you could be actually mistaken. Right? And I think assertiveness comes from the quiet confidence knowing that, hey, good point, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I realize my original point does not fall. And I'm willing to see, I can see how it affects everyone. And I'm willing to move forward together as a team. And if we cannot come to some sort of agreement, perhaps you can sit down and ask yourself, what is holding us back? Is it things that we taken personally? Is it about personalities? Or is it about the context of the situation that prevents us? Because I don't believe if there is a context in which the whole team can benefit, that will stop us from having consensus. Because after all, everyone's going to be benefit unless there's personalities involved. I don't mind, and I'll disagree no matter what happens.
So I think before I jump into this I statement again, right, I think Simple also happy, right? Someone say, if my manager is a narcissist, I will not allow space to give feedback. But how do you deal with that?
Well, instead of feeling angry at the narcissist, and then feeling angry, I mean, I wouldn't use the word narcissist, but maybe perhaps a bit of a control person, I would encourage you to understand where control stems from. The need for someone to actually just be in control all the time. Where do you think the need comes from? Well, for me, I would say it comes from a place of fear. They are fearful, okay? And because they don't trust, they are even more fearful. So a person who is always not willing to hear others will eventually realize that they are left alone doing most of the stuff and just wanting to have a group of yes sir, no sir, three bad fools, sir, yes man following through and doing whatever they do. So you have a choice. You either, just do whatever you say or quietly regain control by being a bit assertive to share your thoughts. You're not going to get complete buy-in at one go, right? That it's not going to happen in one conversation, but at least help the other person realize that you too are feeling a certain way and you would like to be heard. Now, if this person is really then going to be controlling and penalize you and shuts you out and diminishes you, dismisses you, embarrasses you and all that, and I think this is a different conversation already altogether. Okay? Because it seems that there's a bit of bullying and abuse that's going to be taking.
It's kind of interesting because for those who are not aware of, this is a trained counselor, like a social worker. So we do have this social service skill element in what we do. So there's a saying in the family systems whereby you try not to allow that pattern of communication to continue.
Right.
If as then you will be happy and so you pick up for granted your right or whatever matter. So kind of like taking the time to sometimes be assertive, break that kind of pattern of interaction.
So the system benefits from it. One part of the system change could be the other part of the system will also be stretched. No.
So I come back to this I statement now. Someone suggested that instead of saying that I feel disappointed because somehow the project didn't work out and I feel that was part of your part of the reason because you failed to submit the project type. Okay. Instead of that, change it to you may want to consider submitting your project on time earlier in future because it's actually I feel that one body someone is. What is your question?
Well, you could try that and to see whether it works. But I have found that when I say something like you may want to consider, no matter how polite I add on, the word you starts. All right? The sentence starts with the word you, and at the sound of that you, the other person may then begin to put up the defenses. So no matter how you may not get the kind of buy, I am not expressing my point of view. But when I say you may want to, no matter how delicately I couch it, it may still sound quite construction. Yeah? I'm telling you to do something.
Okay. I thought that's an interesting question. What if the person thinks he's right and does not want to change? I guess this comes back to the whole idea of motivation. The person don't see a need to put anything about their behavior. But I guess this audience speaker is trying to support the person with some awareness and maybe also to make that change for the okay.
So this is interesting. In our courses, we teach how to deal and roll with this thing called resistance. To understand that this person has something driving this behavior. That's sort of belief system. We are trying to change the belief system we have and to be a little bit more collaborative. This person will be a little bit more resistant based on his or her value or belief system. We're not here to fight. Okay, we're not here to challenge. We're here to understand that at the heart of all our different beliefs, the values we share will still be similar. It's just that the way we practice this belief system causes us to crash. Okay? So this person doesn't want to change it after you exert yourself. I think when you try to influence it, you may not meet with much success and you get even more discouraged and you will try to push even harder. My suggestion, and Waiko is a motivational interview specialist or instructor, he will also tell you, rolling the resistance means seeking common ground. Understanding why this person does what he does. Validating what he has, his behavior, or rather his values behind the behavior. Not the behavior itself, but validating why I can see that you are quite insistent that we do this way because you believe it will benefit the team. You will make the process a lot more efficient. Can I give you my input as well? Okay. So by validating your values or the reason why you're driving your behavior, we begin the conversation on talking about these things that is important to you. We go deeper than just addressing the tip of the iceberg. that makes sense to you.
So I guess sometimes we also have this saying that if the person don't actually see a need to do anything about it, the first thing is not to get him to agree that he has to do something, or rather to plan it to raise certain question about it. Am I really doing it right? Reading the dog will be the first step.
Is it just like an asshole? Is it not seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah. And someone give you a feedback or opinion can help trigger that because they may not be aware.
Exactly.
So how about I just consider toxic exchange without getting put to defensiveness?
Okay. So I think when the conversation turns toxic, stay curious. Ask open-end questions. What makes you feel that way? Acknowledge the other person's feeling when they share with you. Oh, I can see that you're upset because certain things have happened and you kind of think I'm responsible for it. Okay? Perhaps you would be willing to hear how I see it and allow me to share my point of view to you. If the person says, no, I don't hear you, then the conversation perhaps is better, you are better off having this conversation another time. And then I can acknowledge that you're upset by saying, it looks like you had kind of decided that this conversation is, you're not going to hear any other input. And perhaps you could have this conversation another time where it's a little bit more, you're a little bit more open for me to share background on you, walk away. Okay? So assertiveness is not just about pushing your agenda through, because when you choose to push your agenda through, no matter how the other person is responding, you're no longer being assertive. You are not being aggressive. Right? And we don't want that. That's the opposite. So assertiveness means even knowing when enough is enough, let's walk away on this and let's come back, we revisit this again. Circle back and come back and talk about it again.
So let's say I think the next question actually is aligned to this one that you just shared. How do you have that conversation? I just have a question like sometimes we have this saying where the people will not change just because at the moment you tell me your feedback. Yeah. Because I may be triggered by emotions. But sometimes they walk away and think about it.
Yes, reflect.
So how do you balance this, right? Like give me the space to actually receive it and go off versus hoping that they actually hoping that they will actually acknowledge it.
Okay. So the reality is people don't change from experiences. People don't change for interactions. They change when they reflect on these experiences. They change when they reflect on these interactions. So if I were to hold my ground in a polite, calm way, the conversation may end. You may walk away and say, previously when I talk, this guy gets very defensive, but this time around he's actually open up and ready to talk for me. Could there be something that he has that I should be listening to? Right? So instead of pushy, one of the things that I found to be very useful is to be willing to sit with the person, go at the pace that you want to go, and perhaps drop a question. The way we have been talking and maybe we're in a relationship, the way things have been going doesn't seem to be, we don't seem to be at our best whenever we are together, okay? I seem to trigger something in you, you seem to trigger something in me, and we always end up spiraling. I just wonder how things would be like if we could sit down and agree to disagree. And to be honest with our feelings and to be able to feel safe each other. I wonder how our relationship would change. You don't need to answer me, but perhaps that's a question that, we could come back and this is some other time. No question goes unanswered. Drop a question, walk away, the other person will reflect on it and perhaps come to some sort of conclusion that will be beneficial to both parties.
So I think this is an important question. Sometimes people want to be a source of influence, but influencing top sometimes can be a bit challenging. So how can someone still, I guess the person has a bit of passion about organization, so how can someone stay true to that without feeling jaded or burnout?
A professional, how would you define yourself? If I define myself as a professional, that means no matter what the context is, I will give the best because I want to grow. Okay? As a professional, I set my own standards. The company may have certain protocols you want me to follow, but at the end of the day, it's how my own principles governing my behavior in any organization that I go to. I choose to add value. The company chooses to repay me for the value I add. My boss chooses to milk whatever skills I have so that I can do the work, I can give him the results and make him look good. Right? That's fine. Right? But if he has a certain way of working, that at the end of the day, I find that I can disagree a little bit, I may have to sit down and ask myself, is this a process? Is this a clash of personalities? What exactly am I unhappy with? If it's just his ego and he's just taking credit where it's not due, taking credit for the work we do, how you put in without acknowledging your effort. Here's something that I've learned. If you are as good as you think you are, sooner or later, you will be noticed. You don't have to worry. All you are doing is getting better at your work. Your boss is better at claiming credit. fine. I mean, at some point in time, you will realize that he stopped growing. He's actually not the kind of boss. He's been promoted to so many levels. Now he's as incompetent as he possibly can be, but he's still there because he's got tackle or whatever it is, right? So sooner or later, your competency will outshine his. And quietly confident enough to know that as long as I do the work I'm supposed to do, I stay true to myself, I stay true to who I am and my principles, I will eventually become his boss.
Since this clinic credit, I think the next question is quite bad. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more insight to this question, because one of it is definitely how to someone continue a conversation where the other party is kind of like the defensive and emotional. I'm also thinking in terms of claiming credits and protecting yourself. How do you balance you can be assertive but assertive. But there's also a practical needs where we know that the person is actually doing this behind our back. We want to be also protecting our own interests. Yeah.
So there are two parts of this question. I'll answer the first part where emotions are concerned. It's very important that when you are in a conversation with someone, it turns emotional. The other person is displaying the emotions. Emotions are just another way of communicating that's non-verbal. Don't be afraid of emotions. One of the things that I've learned as a counselor is when you reflect the emotion being shown, you lower the intensity. When you ignore the emotions or you diminish it by telling the person, don't be so angry, don't be so dramatic, don't be so emotional, you're just going to make the person even more upset. Right? So one tip I can have for you is acknowledge the emotion. I can see you're angry because you believe that I was rude. I do apologize if I came across that way. It was not my intention, but perhaps you could tell me how I came across it rude to you. Okay? Open up that dialogue, right? Remember what we talked about assertiveness. So in emotional conversation, acknowledge the emotion first, reflect it back, acknowledge it, and then open up by asking an open-ended question to give the person you're talking to a bit more of a specific, to give them something more specific, something more for you to both focus on rather than just the emotion. So that's the first one. Second part, someone who claims credit for what they didn't do, I think eventually we have to call them, right, in a respectful and professional manner. I can see that you have claimed credit for the work. Perhaps you could tell me in what context do you think you did all the work? Okay? I have had such conversations before. There are organizations where people go into the system and you can credit for the permissions there, or the two of us are working together and somehow through our collaboration we landed an account, but just happened the boss came in and I up for lunch and the boss looks at him and says, "Oh, well done guys, how did you do it?" "Well, I did it," and he says, okay? And I find out, well, what the hell? I can clarify. I can go up here and say, listen, I understand this happened. Perhaps you could tell me a little bit about why you chose to leave me up, you left me up completely when boss asked who was responsible for it. Okay. And if you choose and you think that it's unfair, then I would say go to the boss and clarify. Okay. I know Joe, whoever it is, think credit for the work we do, but I just want to point out that it was not just one person, it was a team member. Okay? And just leave it there. Don't have to belabor the point. Sooner or later, a person's strength will be seen and the witness or the bullshit you throw will be rejected.
But this also takes a lot of clarity, the mindset with your info. It's not about poking the person love. It's not about getting revenge. It's really just
making clear what the facts are and allowing people to interpret it the way they want. There will always be patterns of behavior. Let me just put it this way: as a psychologist, as a counselor, as a social worker in real life, you always look out for patterns of behavior. If you have a colleague who has this pattern of behavior of claiming credit, you can be very sure they spend more time looking for areas to claim credit than actually getting the work done. And you will probably not be the first person who scores that he or she stepped out.
Okay, this question. So, can assertiveness be for someone who's introvert?
I think it's even more important. Look at the first letter of the word introvert. What letter is it? It's I. So it's important for you, Mr. Introvert, to use I statements to express yourself. Introverts are labels. Extroverts are labels. You'll be very surprised that I am actually an introvert if you look at my personality type. But I have been trained to speak up. But if you give me a chance, I would rather hide in one corner and observe the rest of the world. And introverts are great observers. They may be quiet, but when they have something to say, you can be very sure it's based on what they have seen, what they have observed. So I would say that if you're an introvert, you have a lot to share with the world who are probably just going on doing their things and not realizing certain things. It's important for you to share. Right? It's very important for you to share.
Okay, I saw a question on parent. I don't know whether I saw your
Guarantee?
Did anyone see? I just let me ask the crew here. Anyone saw a parenting question? Yeah, I thought I saw also. Okay, but anyway, like this, I think there's no chance. We talked a lot of corporate.
Can I? And then,
Sorry, I missed this question. Some of these questions are missed. Yeah, let's talk about parent or family side now. How the parent sees constant control is always critical of adult child.
well, the parents, what can I say? Okay, I'm a parent, and I have parents, and I realize that parents want to take pride in the things that the kids do, right? And sometimes parents want to play a part in their life, and sometimes they don't realize that boundaries have to be set. So, if I grab a parent and I see my son who's a grown ass 35-year-old or 30-year-old person as a 15-year-old, I'll continue to just tell them things, do that. I think that's where it gets a little bit difficult. So if you had enough and you really want to have a respectful way of pointing out to your parent that you are now brought up and some of the things that he or she is doing is really not helpful, then you need to have the conversation in private, right? And to be prepared for some sort of respect. But respect, mom, dad, I acknowledge a lot of what you've done, but I feel that the way you're treating me does not help when you second guess me. When I say, when I set certain boundary to the kids, and you go up there to tell them it's okay to break the rules, or you tell them, it confuses them. And after all, if we confuse them, we don't want them to look at one of us and say one of us is wrong, one of us is right, and then they begin to take sides. And that's not what we want. Help them to understand in the context of them, acknowledge your contribution, acknowledge why they're doing what they're doing. And more often than not, they're trying to make up for the way they parented you. Okay? They're trying to make up for the mistakes they made with their grandchildren. So don't both take it too hard.
I think these two questions are cutting off. Situations that the person keep cutting you off, or in the context of customer service, right? The other party cut you off and thinks that she knows everything else better than you. And that's quite often, right? Yeah.
So, there's this problem we are having in this world these days, where people who know little seem to think they know everything. And those who really know everything will keep quiet because they'll let those who are empty just go on their way. So I would say let them finish. Okay? And someone cuts off me conversation and your request to finish your sentence is ignored, then just let them brag a lot. After all, if they want to just express and we want to vent, give them the chance to vent and then just summarize what they have to say back to them. Okay, I can hear you're frustrated. I can hear you're angry. And the mere fact that you have shared so much with me tells me you want something done. Would you allow me to tell you what I think I can do for you? I tried earlier, but you didn't allow me to finish the sentence, right? So can we share, or can I share with you my proposed solution? You can be quite sure that they will be willing to listen, because right now they're proposing a scenario, but the part where they cut you off, you gotta understand where they cannot. Okay, they come on the place where, okay, so let them growl and do whatever they want to do, and then acknowledge the pain point they're feeling, and then propose a solution. You'll be more than willing to this.
This is a very good approach, right? Because you are being very collaborative, and you are acknowledging that the person has a lot of emotions. Then you're proposing that it's alright for me to share.
Don't chase it personally. Okay? I think we realize this. There are the 3 customer service professionals, and there are many, many of them around. So I salute to all of you. And all the kind of suck people are throwing you. You are professional because you don't take things personally. You know that the person who's calling you probably is at the end of their book. They try every other thing they think of, or you are lying to get that, and now they're stuck, and that's why they're calling. And they're going to be venting their frustration, take it without being accepted, without taking it personally, and then offer a solution.
So this approach is an I statement again. To zero spell. Whether when we use acting, it may sound a little bit less assertive and not very sure.
Yes. I feel is not wrong, right? But it does sound a little bit, some assertive statements. Okay, let's say, for example, you say something and I think that I had another point of view. I could very well just say what I think. I think that the perspective that you have is valid, but I feel that there could possibly be some other way of looking at it. So when someone says, I think, I feel, you kind of guess what their type is. In terms, some of people are a little bit more somatic, some people more thinking, some people more feeling. We just want to have a conversation where we acknowledge. Okay? But when you share with someone how you think, the other person share how you feel, then you realize you're a thinker, the other person is more emotional. Then somehow you got to meet in the middle. Okay? And I feel that whatever you're thinking is kind of accurate, but not actually applicable in the kind of situation we are currently finding ourselves in. Perhaps I share with you my thoughts, and then you get a conversation.
Okay. So I think it's quite true. Sometimes there's clash effects. It's not just about the situation, it's a clash of So, for example, let's say the boss is someone who is very embracing, more tolerant, and feels that every staff should be given opportunity. And you, as a supervisor, is seeing someone who is not performing, having a lot of activity issue, and you are telling the boss that I don't agree.
Yeah.
I think that this should be the course of action.
Yeah, the boss involved.
So, how do you manage this kind of situation when the values are not aligned, and yet you know that can't be to work with the boss?
I think both parties need to state why they think their approach is applicable. For example, if I am more punitive and I realize that this is affecting me personally and I want to punish a person for affecting me and affecting the team. And my boss is looking at the bigger picture as a team. If we are punitive one person and we need to be punitive to everyone else, how would it affect team morale? So two of us need to sit down and have this conversation where each of us presents where you're coming from and somehow we some sort of middle ground, right? Of course, if there's something that needs to be, I would say, called out, then it would not help if we choose to ignore it because you want to help the person to grow. I think it's important for us to be assertive, yet respectful. Call someone up when you need to. Tell them what the consequences of their actions are. If necessary, if it's not the first sign down, it's some sort of punitive or maybe a formal or official letter that's written to the person and put in their employee docket or whatever, but it has to be done.
So maybe the conversation is no longer about the staff, right? It's about how you're being affected by the decision that is making.
Exactly. It's not about you think, I think, you feel, I feel, and both of us disagree or the other thing, right? So if we are congruent and if we are willing to be a little bit more collaborative, then I acknowledge what I also with you, but we also acknowledge the situation, the context of you behind it. We also acknowledge the staff member whom we are discussing. Remember, it's about the staff and the rest of the team and not just about us as individual.
Okay, so maybe there's two last questions. Maybe this will be the last two questions that we address first. But fine. Okay. This question is a more value. They are often criticize me and does not want me to do better subconsciously. Yet I still stay with him. How do I deal with a family member who is always putting me down or not looking up?
So my suggestion is realize his criticisms can do either of two things. You can either feel anger or you can feel both. Okay? Criticism is comments that people make. If you choose to confront the criticism, what we call negative inquiry, acknowledging, whatever you are saying, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't quite understand truly where you're coming from. Could you elaborate? Okay. But if you realize that it does not want you to be better than it, somehow I wonder where you got that kind of impression from. Okay? Because that may not be accurate. Maybe the dad is worried, maybe he's just miserable with his own life. I think coping with this is quite simply getting on with your life. Right? Winston Churchill said this: if you spot and throw stones at every dog that barks, you will never get your destination. So if you really want to be successful in your life and you really want to make a statement as to how you are growing as a man and how you're developing as a man and how different you are from your dad, focus on yourself. Right? Log his comments to fill your hole, not to stifle you.
So the last question, someone mentioned about the convolution of politics. There are topics that we turn off air and then there's a lot of clash in different opinion, no right or wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you do realize that there are entire nations who are divided because of the topic of politics, divided by the topic of religion. Why? Because it's about belief systems. If you believe you're a genius, I will salute you and say you're a genius. I'm not going to argue, even if I treat it as a single digit, right? I will not argue because if you believe that the world is flat, you're right. You're entitled to your own beliefs. Right now, I'm just wondering whether it's helpful for you. Now, if it's affecting me personally, right, then it's about the job performance. It is about us sitting down at the board deck or in a living room and arguing about politics and arguing about religion and all that. And then I think you just have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this conversation? Is it about the topic or is it about being right? Is it about making someone agree with your point of view or agree that, listen, everyone was at point of view. Entire nations have gone to war over politics. Entire nations have gone to war over religion, right? Is it a battle worth fighting, especially with the family member or someone who are you're close?
All right, thanks. As I think we've come to the last question. I know we have almost like bringing this past.
Thank you for throwing the questions in. I hope you have found the answers useful. Thank you so much for your participation. I really appreciate it.
And if you find this really helpful, right, feel free to reach out to us. There are small things that we can do for organization. We very much focus on people, communication, relationship, leadership stuff. Because there are a lot of things that they take away from the social service sector. And we found like it's quite helpful. And I say both professional in the marketing and branding industry. as well as a trained professional in the counseling field. So we got the best of whole world that you have.
And this man is a social worker by training, so he's got a big heart, and you get to be very sure that between the two of us, whatever needs you have, you got you covered.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for staying through. Appreciate the time. I hope to catch you around. If you reach out to us if you want.
Okay, have a good day.
Yes.
Take care. Bye.